Hi, I'm Erin. I'm a physiologist and breathing coach. Today I want to talk to you about 4 habits you might be doing unconsciously, unaware of it, throughout the day that could be upregulating your sympathetic nervous system, causing more stress and anxiety in the body. So our sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight response, and breathing practices can either downregulate the sympathetic nervous system or upregulate the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is that rest and digest. So when we look at breathing habits and breathing patterns, we know that we're modulating the nervous system through our breath. It's been scientifically proven and shown that different ways of breathing will either upregulate that rest and digest sense of calm, or they can upregulate the sympathetic. And there could be things you're doing today, unaware of it, that is causing maybe more of that stress response, that sympathetic response. So there's 4 habits I want to talk to you about today. The first habit is mouth breathing. So many of us fall into this mouth breathing pattern, maybe because we have not been reminded and told growing up that the nose is for breathing, the mouth is for eating, and that it's really important to breathe through the nose. I know before I got into this field, I really didn't know the benefits or really the reason why we should be breathing throughout our nose. I also was unaware of how much I was breathing out of my mouth when I exercised, when I just walking throughout the day, doing my chores, doing my work on the computer, on the phone. My mouth was hanging open. And I've been teaching yoga for like 12 years now. So I really know that if I was falling into this pattern, that I'm sure many people out there, maybe including yourself, you're falling into this pattern. So the first step is just becoming aware of if you are mouth breathing and working on that awareness and that mindfulness of just shutting your mouth and starting to breathe through the nose. There's actually devices, super not expensive devices you can get on Amazon to put them in your mouth. So you'll almost like a mouth guard, you put it in the mouth and it helps to remind you to breathe from the nose throughout the day. There's also breathing strips you can put on your mouth at night to help you breathe through your nose at night. So we know that there's so much benefit to breathing through our nose during the night, throughout the day, even during exercise. Unless you're working a high intensity workout, breathe through the nose as much as possible. Why? What's the benefit? Breathing through your nose is going to slow the air down when it comes in. So we're going to talk a little bit about over breathing next. But I just want you to know that when the air comes in through the nose, it has to go through a maze of obstacles to get all the way down into the lung. Versus if you gulp in air through your mouth repeatedly, it's going to go much quicker in, and you're actually going to pull in more at that time. So that goes into, again, the habit of over breathing. We'll talk about that next. But breathing through your nose will slow it down. It'll also, your nose is a purification system. It's there to clean the air that comes in. So we will get rid of toxins, we can fight off pathogens, those types of things. So it's a filtration, purification system. It also warms and humidifies the air. So as the air comes in at a certain temperature, it'll be warmed and humidified so that it's better processed in the lungs. And if you just pull it in through your mouth, you're not getting that benefit. So purification, great. The humidification, the warmth, everything that is in the nose is that the structures are meant to do that for you naturally. It's naturally there. It is the vessel we need for respiration. Again, mouth is for eating, nose is for breathing. The final thing I want to talk about when it comes to nasal breathing is nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is produced in the paranasal sinuses. So you're not going to get the benefit, if you're breathing through your mouth, you're not going to get the benefit of nitric oxide, and it'll be picked up in the nose and brought down into the body. And so nitric oxide has been more recently researched. In 1998, 2 scientists won the Nobel Prize for their research on nitric oxide and all the benefits it has in the body. Just to name a few, it is a vasodilator, so that means that it widens your blood vessels. When you breathe through your nose, your blood vessels are going to be widened, which creates more circulation throughout the body so that our blood flow is better, our lymphatic system is better, and it decreases your blood pressure. So with wider wider blood vessels, you'll have a decrease in your blood pressure, which is awesome. A great reason for us to be breathing through our nose. So many people struggle with high blood pressure, and this can be a natural way to help your body. It's not going to cure it per se. It's just a way for you to support your system. So you can get nitric oxide that way. Nitric oxide has also been proven to be a antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, has components that are going to help you fight off infection. So it's good for your immune system. And there's many other benefits to nitric oxide and nasal breathing. But without this being too long, those are just some of them. So first habit is mouth breathing. We have to start to move more towards a nasal breathing pattern throughout the day, throughout exercise, and at night when we sleep. The next pattern is over breathing. So we're in a culture where we overwork, we overstress, we sometimes eat, we overdrink, we just consume. We also tend to overbreathe. This is a little connected with breathing from the mouth. So if you are constantly breathing in and out of the mouth throughout the day, when you're exercising, at night, you're going to be taking in too much air, too much volume, and likely your rate will be quicker because it just comes in faster. Now, over-breathing also has to do volume and rate. So those are the two things that will make you an over-breather. Rate of breathing, just how many breaths are you breathing in 1 minute? Do you know the answer to that question? Many people don't, even though it's one of our 4 vital signs. Many people don't even know how many breaths they're taking in per minute. I know I didn't when I got into this. So I was suffering from postpartum anxiety when I really got into breath work. And at that point in my life, I was breathing about 19 breaths a minute. So I was in almost a mild hyperventilation throughout the day. I was just breathing way too fast, way too much air, oxygen than I needed, which started to get my body out of balance. And once I started to slow down that breathing rate, I saw a huge change in the way I was processing things. So it wasn't the only thing that helped me through, but I will say that breathing and slowing down that rate was very important for my healing. So if you don't know how many breaths you're breathing per minute, the goal is to be around 8 to 12, and some research says even less, but 8 to 12 is a good breathing rate. I would just encourage you to take your phone or take a stopwatch, set it for a minute, and count your breaths. One inhale, 1 exhale is 1 breath. 1 inhale, 1 exhale, 2, 3, and just count your breaths and get a starting point assessment of where you are at. How quick are you breathing throughout the day? You might be surprised. I mean, some people are taking 20, 25 breaths a minute. And if you're breathing that quickly throughout the day, it upregulates our sympathetic nervous system. It signals to your body that you need to fight or flight or freeze, and it sends that stress response and the stress hormones that go along with it and the physiological things that happen when your sympathetic nervous system is upregulated, such as your heart rate is increased, your blood pressure rises, your circulatory system wants to shoot blood to the working muscles, to the brain. It wants to inhibit your digestive system. So a lot of people who are over breathing throughout the day might have issues with their digestion, with not being able to digest things because they don't have that rest and digest, the parasympathetic nervous system in balance. So really starting to look at mouth breathing, over breathing, and the next thing we're going to talk about is your breathing pattern. When you take a big, deep breath, and go ahead and do it now if you're able to, breathe in. Good, try it again, breathe in. And one more time, breathe really deep and see how the breath is coming in. Now, when you breathed in deep, did you go up like this, or did you go out like this? Did you go up or did you go out? So if you lift it up vertically when you were breathing, you have a reverse breathing pattern. Maybe it's not always like that, but it is something you want to look at. A paradoxical breathing pattern would mean that our diaphragm, the muscle, the dome-shaped muscle that's underneath your lung or underneath your rib cage here, it's not being utilized correctly on your inhalation. So when you inhale and you go up, the diaphragm's going up too. Versus when you inhale, the diaphragm should flatten out if you're using the diaphragm. So the diaphragm should flatten out and the ribs should expand out horizontally. So we should not be using our chest, neck, and shoulders for our inhalation and sucking in on the inhale. Many people fall into this breathing pattern. It creates, again, more stress in the body. It's a fear response. Imagine if a car just drove across my living room and came at me. I would go, right? It's a inhalation where you're scared, and if you're throughout the day just sipping in these short, shallow breaths, there's no wonder that you might be feeling stressed and anxious in your life. So you'll calm it down and you'll work on a 360-degree breathing pattern. This is what I teach in my courses and with my clients. And we want to reverse the breath to be expansive on the inhale without using our shoulders and neck, and then we draw back in on the exhale. So you bring your hands to your rib cage if you can, fingertips at your belly. When you inhale through the nose, I want there to be movement in the belly. Let the belly relax on the inhale. Let the ribs expand outward and the back opens up. So you stretch your low back. If you have low back pain, this is a great way to be breathing to help with that low back pain. And you stretch the pelvic floor on inhalation. So think of this as a big circle, 360 degrees. And we're going to inhale and exhale. So I want you to work on that breathing pattern to, especially if you do fall into that vertical breathing where everything comes up on the inhale versus everything comes out. So 360-degree breathing pattern using the diaphragm. The diaphragmatic movement has been shown to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. The reason this happens is that the vagus nerve, two nerves actually, but referred to as a singular nerve, the vagus nerve, which is connected to the parasympathetic response, passes through our diaphragm. So when we start to breathe using the diaphragm muscle, then we will start to activate more of a parasympathetic response. If we're breathing here, we're not going to get that benefit of the diaphragm muscle moving correctly and that parasympathetic response. So we want to make sure we're breathing, expanding out. So now we know mouth breathing is something we want to look at. We want to look at our over breathing. If we are breathing too fast, too much volume throughout the day, we just looked at the reverse breathing pattern. And finally, I want to talk about apnea. So apnea is breath holding, or the sensation of breath, and even just moving into a shallow breathing pattern. It's when your breathing pattern almost like holds for moments, sometimes a long period of time, sometimes a short. Many people have heard of sleep apnea. Well, there's also email apnea or screen apnea that's been coined and researched in more recent years. And apnea just means that many people will hold their breath. So they might be gripping in their stomach. I know as a woman, I've always, before I knew about breath work, I was always pulling my stomach in. I don't know if it was from fitness or the way I was brought up, or like our clothing shapewear where we have really tight clothing, but I was always gripping and holding in my stomach. So if you are falling into that pattern where you hold your breath throughout the day, I want you to start to work on the other things first, and then I think that pattern or that breath holding will start to kind of fix itself. So starting to become aware to your nose, how much you're over breathing, the pattern of your breath, and then you'll notice towards the end of this work, looking at these 4 habits, if you are holding your breath. If you're holding your breath at night during your sleep, or you tend to snore, you might be somebody who has problems sleeping. I do recommend to my clients, and I'm not a doctor, so, don't take this as medical advice, but there are online and they're approved by the FDA breathing tape, basically, where you tape your mouth. I know it sounds crazy, but it really does help if you snore and have sleep apnea and your mouth breathing at night. You tape your mouth and you start to breathe from your nose. That can actually really have a lot of impact. My husband dealt with sleep apnea and he started to use these breathing strips, and the mouth tape, and the nights that he uses them are just night and day. He gets so much more restful sleep because he's not waking himself up over and over from having held his breath and then startling himself awake. So if you deal with sleep apnea, look into that if you haven't already. If you didn't know about it, it's something to kind of explore. Now, the main thing I want to talk about is email or screen apnea. This is huge. We're starting to see tons of people when they're at work anticipating opening a mail, when they're scrolling through their phone, when they're watching TV, if you play video games, that they're not only sometimes just holding their mouth open, breathing from their mouth, but some people will actually hold their breath. They'll stop breathing in almost like anticipation for what's to come. So take notice if you're breathing fluidly while you're doing things that are in front of a screen, because it has been proven that apnea is happening throughout the day, and we want to just have more of a fluid breathing pattern. So I hope these 4 tips were helpful. You can start to do things right away to help yourself be less in that sympathetic nervous system and that sympathetic response, and more at a parasympathetic nervous system response. One other thing I'm just going to bring to light, and I should have mentioned it during the breathing rate, work on trying to get your breathing rate a little bit lower throughout the day. So I like to use a 4-4 breathing pattern. That's 4-second inhale followed by a 4-second exhale. So just working on breathing through the nose in a 360-degree pattern, 4 seconds on the inhalation, 4 seconds on the exhalation, can be a great place to start. If you are super high anxiety and you need to come down and your stress response is just like on, I would recommend a 4-8 breathing pattern. So that's inhaling for 4 seconds and then exhaling double the amount of time, so for 8 seconds on your exhale. Always want to breathing through the nose during these practices and really working on using your diaphragm, that 360-degree breathing pattern, to upregulate our parasympathetic nervous system and just get ourselves into more balance. So I hope you found this really helpful. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to link a PDF with these 4 habits so you can kind of use it as a checklist. You can save it. You can go back to it so you don't have to come back and watch this video again. You can just have that PDF I created for you. And also I'll link a link for my emails if you want to join my email list. I do have a breathing course that's going to be coming on, a digital breathing course. So if you didn't want to do one-on-one coaching with me, you could certainly get into that digital product and that digital course and learn a ton of stuff about breath work. So I hope this was helpful. Comment below and have a great day. Thank you.